Today we're back reading some more ProRevenge. Not only is this going to be a compilation of the subreddit, but I'm also going to read a couple of new posts in the beginning of this, and also we're going to have some PettyRevenge in here too. Just a whole bunch of satisfying revenge stories. And yeah guys, having a beautiful day today, not much to say really. I've been excited about this all day today, and I hope you guys are having a good day too. And let's get right into it. Enjoy guys. I was bored at work, so I got a guy fired and possibly sent to prison for fraud. I worked the night shift as a receptionist at a hotel in Norway, and most nights are spent watching Netflix or playing games. Last summer was really slow, and I also worked a lot extra, so I ran out of stuff to watch and games to play. One night I got a mail from Scooter. He wanted to book a room for almost 20 days. I just had to send him the price and the confirmation that we had the rooms available, and he would then send me his credit card info for me to pre-charge. Normally we just delete these kinds of mail, but I was bored out of my mind, so I responded with an offer for around $2,000 for the entire stay. Also made sure to inform him that he could cancel for free up until the day of arrival. This is probably the most common fraud attempt in hotel and travel industry. Unlike most businesses, we are able to charge credit or debit cards with only the card number and the expiry date. No need for a PIN code or a CVC. Our software also allows us to deposit money directly to local and international bank accounts by using the card number. And because of this, dingbats like Scooter will try to prepay with stolen or skimmed cards, but then cancel the booking and then ask us to refund the amount to a different card. A couple of hours after sending him the offer, he responded with a Visa number and told me to charge him as soon as possible. I checked the card with our validation software, and to my big surprise, it didn't belong to Scooter. If validation succeeds, it'll return with the card owner's name 90% of the time. I sent him a new email stating that the card was declined because of insufficient funds. He quickly replied and gave me a new card to try. Guess what? This one didn't belong to Scooter either. It wasn't even the same person as the first card. By checking the bin codes, the 6 first digits, I found which banks had issued the cards, not even issued in the same country. My plan was to call the banks and inform them of the attempted scam, but there were still several hours before I could go home, so I decided to mess with Scooter a bit more. I sent him a reply that the second card worked, and also the reference number for his stay at our hotel. And as expected, a couple of hours later, Scooter sent an email cancelling the order and asked if we could refund the money to a different card, as he lost his wallet and deactivated the card that he paid with. This card was issued from a Polish bank. Not sure why, but Polish bank accounts are often used by people who want to launder money from like bitcoins and drugs. You can buy a legit card for around $500 that is registered to some guy or girl in Poland from the darknet. At this point, Scooter were probably pretty happy about the $2,000 he soon would receive. I replied that it was no problem for me to transfer the money to a different card as long as it was valid. How fun would it be to also cancel his own card so that he had to spend $500 for a new one? Not fun enough. In the last email, I wrote that he could send me the card number, but that our email server would go down for maintenance in a few minutes, so my boss would do it on Monday. It was now Saturday morning, so enough time for the charge bank to call us and then reverse the transfer if he needed the money right away. I told him to call the hotel before I ended my shift at 7. He called almost immediately, and I wrote down the card number and his phone number, and that it would be in his account by 12. My shift ended, and I went home with all the information that Scooter provided. Wanted to see if I could find out who he was, and of course this idiot had an open Facebook profile that I found using his phone number. He even listed his address and employer. Looked a bit like the artist Scooter, but with even more of a messed up face and spiky hair full of gel. He lived somewhere outside of London, in an area that I'd describe as a British trailer park. Houses that were nice at some point, but where the owners had spent no money on maintenance since it was built. Trash everywhere and broken windows that were boarded up or fixed by sealing holes with garbage. Now to the fun part. According to the Facebook profile, Scooter worked at a hotel. This meant that he'd have access to card information from guests that book through sites like booking.com. I called the manager of the hotel, and I told him there was reason to believe that one of his employees were trying to commit credit card fraud and that the card's number could belong to their guests. I gave him the name of the people who owned the card Scooter tried to pay with, and to no surprise, both had stayed at the hotel. I told him it was Scooter, and the manager just exploded in anger. Not 100% sure what he said because he was screaming so loud, but I think Scooter wasn't a normal employee. He worked there through some kind of government training program or something. After talking to the manager, I called Visa and MasterCard International, and I told them about Scooter's business venture. Apparently it's pretty easy to check if there are more cards that have been involved in a fraud, where the cards also have been used at a hotel Scooter. With this Polish deposit account information, they would also be able to pin it on Scooter if he had been successful in scamming anyone, and sue him for the amount stolen. The police also called me later to get a statement regarding the whole situation, so I know that the manager manager reported it to the police. Not sure what happened to Scooter, but according to his Facebook profile, he no longer works at the hotel or anywhere else as far as I can see. Wow, that's incredible. Just because you were bored, you're like, you know what, I've watched every movie I need to watch. Time for some justice. But yeah, for real, good on you, OP. It sucks that people get away with doing stuff like this. The next one is called A Thief Tried to Steal My Car, accidentally filled it up with gas and brought it back to me instead. My first car was a 1984 Jeep CJ7, a pretty sweet ride for a dirt poor teenager in the 90s. I was working midnights at a gas station and I loaned it to my brother who was taking a date to a party. I got a call around 1 a.m. from my brother who told me he left the keys in the Jeep and it was stolen. I was devastated. I was still on the phone with my brother when the thieves pulled up in my Jeep into my gas station to fill up on gas. As luck would have it, the gas gauge on my Jeep was broken and always read empty, and I worked at the only 24-hour gas station in the area. I pressed the silent alarm and I proceeded to fill up my Jeep. It was a full serve station. When the thieves were out of my Jeep, I saw an opportunity to slip the key out of the ignition and into my pocket. They paid for the gas and argued amongst each other about who had the keys. The delay was enough for the police to arrive. I had to explain the story to the officer half a dozen times before he understood, and the thieves had this stunned look of disbelief on their faces that I'll never forget. The cops were barely laughing, telling the story to dispatch, all while the thieves sat in cuffs in the back of the squad car. The story made most of the major newspapers the following day. Wow, that's so lucky. Like, oh hey, that's my car. What a coincidence, my car was just stolen. That's so funny. Okay, it's definitely compilation time. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoyed the compilation. I'll see you in tomorrow's episode, guys. Neighbor sued me after harassing my dog for months and lost horribly. Several commenters telling me that you guys would enjoy this story. About 6 or 7 months ago, my neighbor got a drone. I don't mind people having hobbies, but for some reason he insisted on flying like the biggest jerk possible. He'd hover it in front of other houses and windows, try to race cars that are going down the road, and worst of all, he had a habit of flying his drone in my fenced backyard, buzzing over my dog, diving low just over my dog's head before circling around to do it again. My dog isn't small, is about 70 pounds and a Malamute, but the drone terrified him and I was worried what would happen if it hit him. I asked my neighbor several times to please not fly in my yard, and I explained that it was scaring my dog. He basically told me to get lost and laughed in my face. When it still continued, I called the police. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do other than ask him to please not fly over my house and property. Finally, in late December, it happened. My dog got tired of his crap and managed to catch the drone right as it was diving towards him. He shredded the drone. The thing was just a jumbled mess of wires and plastic. My neighbor was pissed. He stormed over to my house swearing and threatening me, which I ignored. A week later, I got a summons to a small claims court. He wanted $900 for the cost of his drone and an additional $300 for supposedly denying him access to his property. The drone sat in my yard for a couple of hours before it was retrieved. Screw that. He could have killed my dog. I don't have kids or a girlfriend. I just have my dog, who's my best friend for the past 7 years. That dog has moved with me 3 times, was there when I graduated college, saw me buy my first house and my first new car. I love my dog. I went to legal advice and I got some help from them. Turns out him suing me was the best thing to ever happen. When we got to small claims court, the judge pretty much laughed away his claims that I'd intentionally trained my dog to attack his drone. But little did he know that I was prepared. I had dozens of photos of my yard showing that it was impossible for him to accidentally fly that low to my dog, videos of him harassing my dog in the past, and I'd saved all of my medical bills from taking my dog to the vet. $700 for an x-ray, check. Another $250 to sedate him during. Why not? Don't want him being uncomfortable. Full dental exam with tooth cleaning and repair, $400. Then there was the cost of anti-anxiety meds and a secondary checkup, wet food for a week in case his teeth were hurt, and extra just for good measure. In the end, the a-hole ended up owing me almost $2,000 and is now being investigated by the FAA for not having a registered drone and violating several FAA regulations concerning drone flight. Too near an airport, too close to other people, out of sight of operator, and way above the maximum altitude. Enjoy never being allowed to fly drones again, idiot. They deserve that so much. I was thinking that when they were doing this and the dog destroyed the drone, they would have been like, oh well, okay, I should have seen that coming. But no, they go to OP's house all frustrated at them, like OP has done anything. Like, that was so infuriating reading this. Not only flying the drone over OP's house, but tormenting their dog with it. Yeah, that's so awful. Had a pretty satisfying ending though. The next one is called A Woman Let let her dog poop on the airport floor, so I pooped on her plans. While walking to my gate at LAX, I noticed a woman whose dog was in the middle of doing its business. The woman was loudly FaceTiming with her back to the dog, so I assumed that she didn't notice. That was likely the thought shared by the gentleman who tried to get her attention. Excuse me, miss, he said in a polite tone. The woman glared at him. Your dog, he sheepishly continued, pointing to the mid-poop pup. The woman rolled her eyes and went back to FaceTiming as the man slinked away, seemingly embarrassed. Some people, she bellowed to her FaceTime companion with no hint of irony, are just so damn rude. When her dog finished, the woman started walking away, leaving everything right on the airport floor. Another woman tried to stop her. You're not gonna clean that up? She asked, as shocked as the rest of us. They have people for that, the offender replied, disappearing into the crowd as much as someone yelling into their phone can disappear into a crowd. I stood near the pile and I warned people to walk around it while somebody else got a maintenance worker's attention. No one said anything. We were so shocked that anybody could be that horrible. When I got to my gate, the woman was there too. Great, we were both going to Tokyo. When I travel abroad, I get embarrassed by other Americans doing things 100 times less embarrassing than leaving animal feces on the floor. To make it worse, her dog was now barking at everybody who walked by. I've got nothing against people who fly with their dogs, I deal with often, but it's a privilege that I take seriously. The dog is well trained, it behaves better than most people. He certainly behaves better than that a-hole. Speaking of a-holes, there's a pet relief area inside LAX, past the security, just 2 gates away from where the party pooper let her dog go to town. It didn't matter, she was the type of person to litter 3 feet from an empty garbage can while her dog barked at the world. The woman had moved from FaceTiming without headphones to listening to music without headphones. I don't like to throw around the word sociopath, but I don't know how else I could even explain just how selfish and terrible of a person she was. I'd bet her car was somewhere in long-term parking, parked across 3 different spots with paint on the bumper, from the child's bike that she hit without leaving a note. Everyone else tried to ignore her, sitting as far away from her as they could. I'm not everyone else. I sat down right next to the horrible woman. Are you going to London on business? I said. I'm going to Tokyo, she responded gruffly, annoyed that I interrupted her DJing. Oh, I said. Then you better hurry. That flight got moved to gate 53C. This is the flight to London. I figured that I could give her a little moment of panic as payback for how terribly she was treating everybody. I didn't predict what had happened next. She grabbed her bags and her dog in a huff and stormed out of the gate without even checking. She was so self-involved she didn't even notice that the monitor at our gate still said Tokyo, and almost everybody at the gate was Japanese. Based on her action, she believed that the flight had been moved, so she's also an a-hole for not thanking me. Some people, I thought, as I watched her rush away from the gate without stopping her, are just so damn rude. The flight to Tokyo was at gate 69A, so the 53 gates were on the other side of the next terminal, and I felt guilty knowing that she probably berated some poor clerk who had to explain to her that there was no gate 53C. I don't know if she made it back to the flight before we took off or not, but I did not see a board and I don't hear the dog. Her missing her flight was not my original intention, but it would be a fine punishment for her being so rude to everybody and making a low-paid stranger clean feces off the floor. What makes me wonder if I went too far is the knowledge that Delta only has 1 flight to Tokyo each day. Yeah, whoops. Maybe she can rebook another airline. I hear they have people for that. We need to make so many more episodes on this. God, that was incredible. But as much as you'd hope that they'd be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be such an a-hole, there's no way somebody like this is ever thinking they're in the wrong about anything. Judging from their actions in this, they're not the sort of person who's going to self-reflect about anything. But yeah, at least they got a little bit of karma for what they did. The next one is called build a driveway across somebody else's property without permission, pay the price. I'm not sure if this one is pro enough, but here goes. I've been visiting my friend at his dad's house in an area where the land is so steep that all the driveways have to switch back up from the main road to the houses. A straight driveway isn't even an option because it would be steeper than the building code allows. A few doors down the road there lived a nice old couple who until recently had a vacant lot next door to them, but the lot had sold and the new owner had started construction on a new house. Unfortunately, the lot was so steep that the new owner built his driveway partly on the old couple's land. It was carved out of the hillside with an excavator. Probably wouldn't have been a big deal if the new owner had approached the old couple first and asked them nicely, but did he? Would I be telling this story if he had? In fact, the old couple had no idea what was happening until they came home one day to see a huge scar in the hillside snaking up from the road in from their house, across the corner of their property and winding upwards to where an excavator was working to prepare the land for the new neighbor's house. They were pretty upset, but being nice, reasonable people, they figured that it was an honest mistake, so they went over to talk to the machine operator. He didn't know anything useful, but he was happy to give him the phone number of the new property owner. The old guy gave him a call door and politely explained the situation, but his new neighbor, whom he'd never even met, was having none of it. He flat out denied that the driveway crossed the property line, and he was rude enough that the old guy was pretty upset. At this point, the old couple weren't sure what to do. They double-checked the property pins to make sure they were right, and of course they were, but after further conversations with the new owner, it was clear that he was an unreasonable guy who was not going to come to the negotiating table willingly. The old couple didn't want to take legal action because that would have been expensive, and frankly, the damage to their yard was already done. At the same time, they couldn't just let somebody walk all over them like that, especially if they were going to be living right next door for the foreseeable future. So the situation stewed for a while as construction continued on the new house, until one day when my friend's dad saw the old couple in the neighborhood and they started chatting. Of course, they told him the story about the new a-hole neighbor. Now, my friend's dad really likes the old couple, who don't have a mean bone in their bodies, so he was pretty pissed about the situation, and when he went home, he couldn't get it out of his head. That evening, after a few beers, he had a brilliant idea. He called up the old couple, explained his plan, and asked them for their permission to carry it out. They chuckled and they gave him the go-ahead, so he hopped into the rusty old full-size pickup that he kept as a second vehicle and drove it over to the old couple's place, where he parked it across the encroaching driveway, making sure that it was entirely on their property. The next morning, the work crew arrived bright and early to find that they couldn't drive to the house because some jackass had parked a crappy old F-150 across the driveway. They saw the note in the window with my friend's dad's phone number on it, so they called him to ask what the hell. He explained that he had the permission from the owners to park there, and that no, he would not move his truck so they could get to work. Furthermore, if anybody attempted to tow the truck, they'd be charged with trespassing and theft. There was no way the construction guys were going to haul all their tools up the hill by hand, and they didn't want to get into the middle of a legal battle, so they just called the new owner to let them know they'd be taking the day off, and that they'd continue to take days off until the property boundary dispute was resolved. The new owner called the old couple in a fury, but the old couple told them the same thing that my friend's dad told the construction workers. Basically, the vehicle was parked on their own property, so if he had a problem with that, he could go and you-know-what himself. To make an already long story shorter, the new neighbor ranted a while, but eventually he wanted his house to be built, so the nice old couple ended up with a significant sum of money for an easement allowing the driveway to pass across the corner of their property, and my friend's dad got several thank you cases of beer and the satisfaction of putting an a-hole in his place. Edit, this occurred in a small town in Canada. For those who think I made it up, thank you for thinking I'm so clever, but judging by the number of similar stories in the comments and people asking if this was in so-and-so town, I think this does happen pretty often. Not too surprising considering the number of houses built each year in the world. Regarding the legal questions and comments, the reason the guy built the driveway where he did was because it was cheaper and easier than making it all on his land, not because there was no other option. So most of your points, if not all, are mute. I'm on mobile, so I can't paint a picture, but imagine two lots next to each other on the uphill side of a road with the property boundary perpendicular to the road. The older couple live on the left when you're looking uphill. The driveway is for the property on the right, and it snakes up the hill in a roughly S shape. The bottom 50 feet or so of the driveway crosses the old couple's land to reach the road. I'm not sure if any trees were harmed in the making of this post. The driveway was done by the time I saw it, but the couple didn't make that an issue, so I suspect not. And yeah, my friend's dad drove after drinking a few beers. Every hero has his flaw. Thank you for reading. Yeah, like this comment says, why are people so rude to their neighbors? They live right next to you. Yeah, this guy made like the worst first impression ever. Like, God, what a way to meet somebody. Like, oh, okay, you're being awful and you live right next to me. Great. Also, good on the friend's dad for helping. Like, that was so awesome of him. I hope you guys are enjoying this episode. Let me know down below if you are. Maintenance guy throws out 15 years of important knowledge. A while ago, I worked at a baseball store called Walmart, or a general goods store that sounded like that. Not so long after the Great Recession of 2008, and management was trying to cut costs because of falling profit. One of the first things that management did was fire 2 of the 3 full-time maintenance guys. The one guy they kept, I'll call him MG for maintenance guy, was amazing at his job. Everything in the store ran well because of him and his willingness to go beyond what was required to help people. A genuinely nice guy. For 6 months, management tried to make having 1/3 of a maintenance staff work, and it failed miserably. Maintenance guy couldn't do everything, and over time, management increasingly asked him to coordinate some part-timers that were supposed to do cleaning and carts. He spent so much time coordinating that he had no time for maintenance. The night crew was also cut, so they couldn't pick up the slack. Then 2 things happened within the space of a week that told management how important he was to the store running well. First, some cleaning machines broke down. Turns out they have to be properly cleaned weekly. If left alone, they gum up real bad and parts wear out super fast. A several $1,000 repair bill because he was told to prioritize coordinating part-timers over quote-unquote tinkering with machines. A few days later, the deli lady nearly quit after the blade on the deli slicer went flying off and could have cut avocado faced bad. Turns out the bolt that had held it in place was loose, and maintenance guy had tightened it weekly for her. When he didn't have time to do that anymore, he told management that it had to be replaced for safety. Well, management didn't do that because it cost money, but they told people it was fixed. That could have been a lawsuit or criminal charges. They and the deli lady got lucky, so management sat down with him and asked him why things were going wrong. Maintenance guy told them point blank he needed enough time for maintenance, and somebody else had to coordinate the part-time cleaners and check up on them. They were rather lazy. Management called BS. They said that maintenance should be easy and done quick. Maintenance guy got mad because that insulted his professionalism, and he pulled out his notebook from his back pocket. It turns out that over his 15 years, he'd filled the book with charts, schedules, and diagrams of how to do his job and keep things running. There were over 100 things that he checked weekly or monthly. There were a lot of machines that he kept in running order. Some had certain things that were half broken and had to be wiggled in a certain way. To be honest, a lot of these things were minor or major safety hazards, but over the years, management was fine with not replacing multi-$1,000 machines if maintenance guy knew how to keep them working. As well, he did things that he should not have done, like calibrating machines for departments that should have done it themselves or contracted it out, but he was a nice guy and he liked helping people. He told me that he spent about a half an hour telling management about what he did, and he suspected that until then, nobody had ever known how much he did. Well, he may have said a few swear words and derogatory things while telling management why he needed time to do stuff. It was not a good moment for him and he was pissed. At the end, he put his notebook back in his pocket and offered to take a week to write up everything that he knew so that management would have written proof of why his job mattered in case a higher up asked why they increased maintenance costs when corporate were demanding they cut costs. The multiple managers in the room looked at each other and asked him to leave so they could talk in private. He told me several years later when I ran into him somewhere and had lunch with him that he had a premonition as he walked out of the room. So we went to the back room and he tossed his notebook in the garbage compactor. For good measure, he went around the store and emptied all the garbage cans and tossed those bags in so his notebook was properly buried. He was fine with it. All that information was in his head. After a few minutes, management called him back. They told him that they could not allow him to keep working there because of the level of insubordination that he showed. They said as soon as he surrendered his badge, box cutter, and notebook, he would be escorted out of the building by security. They basically treated him like a criminal. Most fired people are not escorted out unless they were suspected of committing a crime. He handed over his badge and box cutter. They asked him for the notebook. He said that he threw it in the compactor. Their eyes went wide and they asked why he threw it out. He said that he thought he was going to write everything nicely up on the computer from memory, so he thought that he was done with the notebook. At this point, management starts looking at each other worried because they'd intended to take his book, fire him, and have a less subordinate part-timer who doesn't get expensive benefits like a full-timer do his job, and now they couldn't. One of the managers suggested that he be allowed to write up the information before being escorted out, and the others agreed. Oh god, how awful are these managers? He was given the chance to be unfired just long enough to give them the information. Oh, how kind. He laughed and walked out, head held high, and management followed him to his car to make sure that he left. I don't have exact numbers, but I guesstimate the store had to spend at least 20 or 30 grand to replace all the stuff that maintenance guy kept working beyond the equipment's lifespan, and the new guy they fired had a hell of a time figuring out how things worked. To be honest, in a few cases, maintenance guy had gone too far, like creating fire hazards by taping broken charges together after rewiring them instead of tossing them, but management had never complained when he saved them money. There was also a lot of things that should have been done by the health and safety team, but they also never complained about having less work. I asked him if chucking out the notebook was illegal, but he said it was personal property to help him remember things. It was not a work-provided notebook. He was proud of what he did. His pride was clearly shown in how he told the story. He said that nobody's allowed to question his professional judgment by implying that he's lazy. I agree. Edit, after reading the comments, I'll say a few things to clarify. It might be too late for that, but I don't check Reddit while I sleep. Number one, I came in the day after the deli machine incident. I was hearing things and I asked somebody what happened. I was told that the machine malfunctioned while deli lady was using it, and she freaked out and refused to come in. She took a few days off to calm her nerves. Over the course of the next few days, I heard multiple versions of the story, some involving the blade coming off, some not, and one that involved the blade getting lodged in the ceiling. Did I pick an interesting version to retell? Yeah. The problem with telling somebody else's story is it keeps getting better every time it's told. So if you see people commenting that deli machines don't work that way, they're probably right. I mentioned that this happened during or soon after the Great Recession. According to people there, management used to readily approve replacing damaged equipment. It was after the recession they stopped doing that and relied on maintenance guys' temporary fixes. A lot of what he did was not supposed to last. He was really pissed at the end because multiple times management had refused to replace stuff that was obviously broken, and at times management had told them they would replace something and then change their minds without telling him. That's why he really snapped at the end. Some people have pointed out that replacing 20 grand of machinery is cheaper than paying a guy for 15 years. That is technically true, but stuff does not stop breaking down or stop needing to be cleaned just because someone was fired. The store had to replace him anyhow, so firing him did not save money. As well, that 20,000 or so of replacement should have happened over 4 or 5 fiscal years, not all at once. Chances are some manager kept getting good annual reviews for keeping capital spending down, not realizing that he was just postponing the inevitable. Final edit, I don't know exactly what was in the book, but I can speculate. Yeah, it was probably a lot of scribbles that could not be easily deciphered. Yes, in the long run, he was easily replaceable and the incident is a blip on profit. The one major thing management probably really wanted was the list of what machines needed to be watched or tinkered with. The couple of weeks or so after he left were a crap show because people were afraid to use stuff because of crazy stories circulating about the deli lady, but within 2 months things were humming along fine. However, this is not a subreddit about proper management or profitability. It's about revenge, and he got his revenge. Wow, another fun one to read. I'm addicted to these. I left behind a dead man switch in the company workflow when I sensed I was about to be bullied into quitting. First of all, the story is a bit older, but I will keep stuff rather ambiguous at times just for my own safety. I don't know how much my company can find out. I hope I can put into words so everybody understands, especially as English isn't my first language. Also, there will be a TLDR at the bottom. Also, there are some Google translations in this, so please be merciful. So, let's get started. I started working in logistics at a company that builds things. That was just as COVID started actually. When I started, we were 5 people in the team, but one of the guys quit soon after. This is important because it was a very good insight into how my department operates when they don't need or want a certain someone around. They won't outright fire you, since then they have to pay you a severance, but instead they'll bully you into quitting. I saw pretty much the whole package, excluding them from meetings and important events, putting them down in public, lecturing them, never noticing good work was done, but always making sure that everybody knows about work that is poorly done, drowning someone in work and then berating them when they inevitably can't keep up. It was outright childish at times. I didn't register it at the time, but it was a really valuable lesson for later. I was put in charge of managing our overseas suppliers, among other things. About half of our material came from overseas, most of that from China. While it seemed like a big task for somebody new, it wasn't done out of malice. Genuinely, everyone believed we were going to get a guy in China for the Chinese supplies, and then I'd be left with a handful of others. It seemed fair, but we never got that guy for China, and I was left with all the overseas suppliers. Another important thing is that just in this project, the company had decided to change the workflow for overseas suppliers. This is because due to COVID, the price of shipping containers had exploded. To explain it as simply as possible, previously the suppliers were responsible for filling our containers and bringing them to the harbour. We were responsible for picking them up from the harbour and bringing them to us. However, due to demands and many other things, sometimes we just needed 2 or 3 pallets of parts where a dozen or more could fit inside a container, so we were shipping a lot of air. The new workflow would have had the suppliers bring the parts of an external warehouse, one in the US, one in China, and then we would load them into containers to get the containers as full as possible, and then bring them to the harbour and then into our plant. This way we needed to rent far fewer containers. This complicated things because it erased the direct contact from us to the suppliers, and there was no official method of how we were going to keep in contact with the suppliers and tell them how many parts we need or how to package them, or if there were any changes requested, etc. During that time, I was mostly left alone to deal with it, and I set up a system with Excel. It was mostly manual, rather simple, but it worked well. It worked so well that one of the suits even chatted with me about it for a bit, since he wanted to make it a standard in future projects. And also, this is very important, I was the only person who actually knew all of our overseas suppliers and their contacts. Some of you might be able to tell where this story is going already, so during that entire time, nobody had actually bothered to ask me to explain to them how the system worked and where I kept track of all the supplier contacts. All of this data was hidden on like slide 800 of some Excel file that I had saved in a folder titled Part Pictures, which was otherwise filled with pictures of parts. Now, moving forward, as COVID began dying down, the department for whatever reason decided they don't need me anymore. I have theories, but nothing certain, so I'll just leave it at that. I pretty much saw precisely the same thing going down as I had seen with that one guy who'd left shortly after I started. All the bullying. I thought to myself at first that if I pull through and I keep doing a good job, and I believe I did a good job, they would eventually cool down, but they didn't. After 2 months of that, I said screw it, and I decided decided to just sit out and endure until the Christmas bonus that we get every year, and then hand in my notice. And also, I just delayed teaching anyone how my system worked until I was gone. Off topic, for my own future employment. I actually lucked out. One of the local suppliers I was managing had a really chill guy as managing director. I gave him a call, I explained I was about to be unemployed, asked if they needed staff. He then called me into an interview. We talked about anime for an hour while his HR lady looked confused about what Attack on Titan was, and he told me I can come in the moment that I'm done with my current job. Back on topic, about a month into working at my new job, I got a call from the old job, the department manager. To his credit, he was always a reasonable guy. He told me in plain words that they have no idea where the hell to even start with the Chinese suppliers. He then offered me my old job back with a very respectable pay increase. I explained that I already had a new job. 2 days later, I got another call where the same manager offered me many times my monthly salary just to come in for 1 week and instruct my old team in how my process functioned, introduce them to all the contacts, etc. I told him I refused because of the way I'd been treated by them when I worked there. He said that he understood and he wished me luck at my new job and then hung up. This week, I randomly got in touch with some of the people in the transport department from my old job. They mentioned that in the now 10 months since I left, the logistics department racked up 8-figure losses due to wrong deliveries, over and under deliveries, outdated parts, some suppliers cancelling their contracts, and new supplies needing to be sourced, etc. And all the blame for that fell on my old team. My new job is fine. It's not the best job, but I get to travel a lot and I get nice bonuses for it. My boss isn't around much since he got married. I do sometimes regret not taking that offer for a week as an instructor. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed the read. Wow, they did not realise what they were getting themselves into, did they? And that's what they get as well. Treated you so awfully. And what, they think it's okay to do stuff like this? Obviously they do, because they've done it multiple different times. Yeah, this couldn't have been more deserved. And good on you for standing your ground, OP. The next one is called My Boss Stole My Super Bowl Tickets, so I made him lose a major client. With the NFL playoffs back on, I thought you all might enjoy this football-related revenge story. I'm a big fan of the 49ers, the rabid all-day tailgate in the parking lot type. A few years ago, we made it back to the Super Bowl. I was working at a consulting firm with a handful of accounts I'd interact with directly. One client in particular knew how big of a Niners fan I was. I was the day-to-day lead on his account. He really liked working with me and we became friends, often grabbing drinks or dinner after our meetings. He had access to a pair of extra company seats to the game, and as a thank you, wanted to give them to me as a gift. He passed the tickets over to the partner on that account, who I'll refer to as Ding Dong Head Partner, to be given to me as a surprise. The game came and went and we lost and it sucked. The next time we met, we went to drinks afterwards and he mentioned, "Hey, by the way, why didn't you go to the game? I heard somebody else was in your seats." I asked, "What game?" He said, "The Super Bowl." Confused, I answered, "I didn't have seats to the Super Bowl." He told me that he gave Ding Dong Head Partner a pair of his company tickets for me as a gift, so I could attend. I had zero idea what he was talking about. He looked shocked and told me to quietly ask around about it and get back to him. When I was back in the office the next week, I found out through one of the secretaries that Ding Dong Head Partner had given a pair of Super Bowl tickets to another one of his clients as a gift from our company. I might have let this sort of thing go to keep the peace under different circumstances, but these were seats on the 30-yard line to see the bloody 49ers play in the Super Bowl. I was so pissed. I considered confronting Ding Dong Head Partner myself, but I realized it was the client who had noticed I wasn't there in the first place, so if I let him handle it, there would be no blowback on me. So I texted him, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you so much for thinking of me with those seats. It appears they were given to another one of our firm's clients." He texted back right away in all capital letters, "Are you kidding me?" And then, "Pretend I never told you, let me handle it." He followed up with me about formulating a plan. A few days later, we were asked to come down for a meeting in their office. The client requested the partner be present, not entirely unusual. So Ding Dong Head Partner and I hopped on a flight the next week and we headed over to their office. And little did Ding Dong Head Partner know, my client had orchestrated a wonderfully awkward little show to catch him red-handed. When we entered the conference room, it was all the usual suspects along with a woman in her 30s that we didn't recognize. My client immediately introduces Ding Dong Head Partner. "This is Stephanie such and such, VP from another department. She wanted to sit in on this meeting. Hey, OP, you guys must already know her from the Super Bowl." She then responds as she goes to shake my hand, "Oh, I don't think so. Did we meet there? I'm sorry if I forgot." The client responds, "Geez, Steph, how much did you have to drink? They were sitting right next to you." The client looks at me and I say, "Sorry, I wasn't there. Are you thinking of someone else?" At this point, Ding Dong Head Partner is looking visibly uncomfortable, probably trying to come up with an excuse. He starts in with an, when Stephanie says over him, "No, so-and-so from the other company were in the other seats. By the way, I was wondering why we gave company seats to those guys. Is there a project we're working on with them that I don't don't know about? Obviously not. They're in completely different industries. It'd be like Coca-Cola partnering with John Deere. Ding Dong head partner lets out a again, and the client immediately speaks over him, asking Ding Dong head partner, I gave you those tickets for OP. At this point, Ding Dong head partner is turning bright red. He responds, well, he wasn't able to make it, so he must have given the seats away to someone else, and turns to me looking for me to cover for him. The client smirks at me. I respond, what are you talking about? The client suddenly raises his voice. Ding Dong head partner, those tickets were a personal thank you gift from me to OP. Did you give them away to someone else? Was it another client? Ding Dong head partner butts in with, maybe something got mixed up in the office. The client went quiet for what probably seemed like an eternity to Ding Dong head partner. He then looked down, grabbed his portfolio and iPad, put them into his briefcase and said, I think this meeting is over. OP, it seems as if I owe you a thank you gift. Let's go to lunch. Stephanie, you're welcome to join. Ding Dong head partner, I need to evaluate our relationship. Please go back home and expect to hear from us next week. Ding Dong head partner suggests that he'd like to join, presumably to do damage control, and Stephanie sternly tells him, I don't think that's a good idea, and asks the front desk to see Ding Dong head partner out. As soon as he's in the elevator, we all break out laughing hysterically. Stephanie wasn't really a VP, just an employee at the company who the client had drafted into helping with his pre-planned meeting skid, but she did end up coming to lunch with us and was a fellow Niners fan and a total blast to hang out with. On our way to the restaurant, I got a desperate text from the Ding Dong partner saying that I needed to cover for the firm and that we could discuss things when I got back. I replied, yes, we do need to talk, but I'll see what I can do. Client told me to wait a couple of hours and then respond to him. One, to expect invoices for the resale value of the Super Bowl tickets. Resale is way above face value. It was over 10 grand, as well as our lunch. He picked a pricey spot and made a big show of overspending, and that he expected them to be paid immediately, and 2, expected I be given a direct apology, and 3, expected a written apology to his company for what he considered theft, and 4, he'll only ever interact with me or another one of our firm's partners, never Ding Dong head partner. The whole thing caused a stir with the other partners, and I actually came off looking great because it appeared that I'd made a good faith effort to save the client for the firm. Despite being the victim in the situation, the client would transfer to another partner, which meant that Ding Dong head partner lost his profit share on any work with them. Oh, and the other partners in the firm made Ding Dong head partner pay the invoices back out of his salary. In retrospect, I really have no idea what the hell the guy was thinking. Did he seriously believe the client would just not notice me not thanking him for Super Bowl tickets? Anyway, the well was kind of poisoned for me there long term because Ding Dong head partner wasn't going anywhere. I left the firm a few months later for a better position. The client ultimately terminated their relationship with that firm a year later. He actually now works with a good friend of mine at a competing firm. I'm still pissed I missed out on the Super Bowl even though we lost, hoping that we make it back this year so I can finally go to one in person. Go Niners. Yeah, that's right. What were they thinking? It doesn't make any sense. They were never gonna get away with it. And the way that you guys had the meeting with them was so good. That was such a fun bit to read. But yeah, God, it sounds like they did end up paying the price for it. Fair enough too, but the confusing part is why they even did it. Like, why would you feel like you could get away with something like this? The next one says, neighbors kept parking in our lot. I froze them out. This happened around 20 years ago. Our family owned 2 apartment buildings, 3 units each. We lived in 2 of them and rented out the other 4. There's nothing but these 3 flats lining both sides of the road for about a mile. Not all have parking. On the side streets are houses and very little street parking. We had more land than most of these units, since it was also our home. So we had parking for around 16 cars. Everything was fine for literally decades. But then cars started appearing in our parking lot that were not our tenants. I blocked one in one day, went outside to see that this a-hole drove through our bushes and across the yard to get out. I called the cops and nothing they could do, so I called a tow company and I had them put up signs. We'd have to call them to have a car towed. The signs seemed to work. No more random cars. That was until New Year's Eve one year. I arrive home and every space is full. There are even cars on the street blocking in the other cars. I'm beyond pissed. I call the tow company. They can't do anything for a few hours because they're so busy. We're in the Chicago suburbs and it's below 0 out. I have an idea. I dig out the lawn sprinklers and the hoses. I run one hose inside to the laundry faucet and I turn on the hot water. This way the hose and the sprinklers won't ice up, but the cars in the ground sure did. 3 sprinklers moved every half an hour or so for almost 5 hours. Every car, every square inch of the parking lot, the street by the cars, all encased in ice. I made it a point to spray the ice in the locks, also between the window sills and the glass, and in the grills. I put away the sprinklers and hoses and I went to bed. 4 a.m, furious pounding on the doors, doorbells ringing non-stop. We just smiled and called the cops, waited until they arrived and went outside. The cops were holding back laughter. These people were told to park here by their friend. friend who owned an apartment several buildings away, the same idiot who drove over our bushes. I pointed to the tow sign and I told the people to move their cars or get towed. In our town, cops can ticket on private property with the owner's permission, so all the cars were ticketed. They were also towed since nobody could get in their vehicle. I wish we had it on video. Oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah, like this comment says, that's both evil and bloody hilarious. I wish there were photos. It's so stupid of that person to say that they could park there. Like, they got their car blocked in when they parked there. Why did they suggest it to other people as a place to park? Yeah, that's confusing, but so funny. The next one is called Former Manager Made My Life Hell, and I finally got her fired. I was desperate to join a new job after my husband and I were both laid off last year. When I was offered a new role, I knew it'd be a step down from what I was doing, but the manager and the team seemed great, and that part has not changed. However, since my manager Gary was so busy, he basically offloaded me to another manager, Jane. I was supposed to be the connection point between my team and Jane, but it quickly became Jane micromanaging me. She would ask me to work through lunch, move or cancel vacation days, call at 11 PM on weekends, and order me around on phone calls. She also made nasty comments about my weight and said I was big for my race. Oh god. The list of personal slights so long that it filled 3 pages. I would talk back to her and she did not like that, and that provoked her more. I only stayed there because we needed to pay the bills. Finally, I had a mental breakdown on a Friday afternoon after she yelled at me for something trivial about scheduling a meeting without including someone from her team that I didn't even know about. I was dealing with a family tragedy and I couldn't take it anymore. I told Gary about the situation with Jane and he was sympathetic and not at all surprised, considering half her team quit. He immediately offered to move me to a different team under him. I was thrilled. Well, turns out going to the new team didn't help. Jane continued to order me around from afar. When I ignored her email, she came to my desk one day and started loudly talking about how I'm not qualified for this role. Gary overheard and finally told her off, but the verbal abuse didn't stop. After 2 months there, I abruptly wrote my resignation letter and I stapled the list of Jane's offensive comments and I CC'd everyone. Gary offered a bunch of accommodations to try to keep me, but seeing how she was still provoking from afar, I said the only way for me to stay would be for her to go, and he didn't have the authority to let her go. Her manager was in a different country, and despite several HR complaints from at least 5 different people, nothing was done. So I left loudly and without shame, telling everyone exactly why I was leaving. Times were very bad for 3 months. There were nights that we would eat slices of bread just so we could pay the mortgage and emergency expenses from a health crisis and a funeral. Even after he found a job, we were still catching up on bills, and we still are. I spent months applying to 5 to 10 roles a day, sometimes over 20. Last month I saw a public memo about a big shot from a former company joining the company that I just left. I used to work with this guy closely and I texted him, congrats, let me know if you need any insights on the new place. We had a quick call where I told him some ins and outs, where I thought they could innovate. After this call, he asked me to join the team as his chief of staff. I accepted. Imagine Jane's shock when we had our first all hands call. All the VPs and above were asked to welcome the new big shot in a giant conference room. In the big shot speech, he breezed over that I'd be his new chief of staff, along with a few key names. I now sat 2 levels above Jane, and apparently within our 3 months I was not there, the other half of her team turned over. Every single person left. Gary was excited for me and said all nice things. However, Jane took the classless route and sent Big Shot an email about how I'm an unqualified idiot, that I used to work for her, how I tried to get her fired, and that she suspects I lied to get ahead. She didn't even try to be fake nice. Big Shot forwarded me her email and asked me what it was about. I was so nervous and excited. Little did Jane know, I was a director at Big Shot's competitor company and was already a level above her, so 2 levels isn't a big leap, and I worked with him for 5 years. I had an hour-long call with Big Shot, and I told him she was bad for the company culture and she was a nasty person in general, but the evidence he needed was Gary confirming that her whole team was turned over. My resignation letter was still sitting on my desktop when I logged in upon return, and a few other nasty emails she sent her recent staff, which they were happy to share with us. Big Shot fired Jane on Friday. Wow, yeah, get out of here, Jane. That was so satisfying. And yeah, good on you, YP. I dyed my hair blue so my boss would stop blaming me for hair in the customer's food. I used to work for a sandwich shop. All the other employees there were Indian women that had very long black hair. Mine was sort of similar, I suppose, medium length and brown. But every time a customer would complain about a long black hair in the food, my boss would immediately blame me without any hesitation or investigation, despite the fact that I was the only person who wore my hair up and netted. So one day I dyed my hair blue with the sole purpose of not being blamed for black hair being in the food. You guessed guessed it, it happened. And how huffy and annoyed my boss got when I said it couldn't be my hair because my hair's blue was beyond amusing. Wow, that's so funny, but also so frustrating. Like, what are you doing blaming them for? Like, oh damn, I can't blame you anymore. Like, oh yeah, I never should have been blaming you anyway. Yeah, I can tell this subreddit's gonna be fun. Story number 2. I screwed my horrible landlord out of tens of thousands of dollars. I'll keep it short. Landlord already charged above market rent. Increased massively when renewing when my family was experiencing medical issues and we couldn't move and I begged him not to. Turns out the city has laws against that size of a rent increase. I waited until my family health issues were resolved. Gave early termination notice. Landlord freaked out as it's really hard to rent in winter. I replied with a lawyer's notice on a legal rent increase. He begged me to settle out of court. Moved out. Landlord had to re-rent for $1,000 lower a month, the actual market value, and settled out of court for 2 months rent and a return of my deposit in full. It cost him about 20 grand for being an a-hole. Edit, I didn't imagine in my wildest dreams that this would blow up. I just wanted to share my victory against an oppressive landlord. I don't want to share everything that he did. Thank you for all your support. For some folks mentioning that it's not revenge, just enforcing my rights, that is fair. It feels like revenge after all of his harassment. Edit number 2. Also to clarify, it's probably more than 20,000, 2 months rent settlement plus and my deposit of 1 month rent for a total of 15,000. I was paying 5 grand a month in rent. The 1,000 lower per month he'll have to swallow until summer, then he can fleece the next person. I live in a very high cost of living area. Oh my god, you sure do. 5,000 a month in rent? Jesus. But yeah, this is what they deserve for acting like this. There's a comment here that said they messed around and they found out. And yeah, I feel like that pretty well sums it up. The next one is called Ruin My Wedding to Propose. I'll ruin your proposal. I, 35 male, have a younger brother, Todd, 29 male, who had a complicated birth and had to stay a month in the ICU. And because of that, my parents have always doted on him and always denied him nothing, even if it was to the detriment of my sister, Abby, 32 female, and I. My brother drinks in on the attention and has on more than one occasion made himself the center of attention at either my or my sister or my cousin's special event. Because of this, Abby and I have a strained relationship with Todd and our parents. Unfortunately, Todd met and fell in love with Lucy, 24 female, who announced her own pregnancy at the baby shower that my mum held for Abby. When I proposed to my wife, Michelle, 30 female, I just wanted to elope, but she really wanted her family to be there, so I invited my family out of obligation. While out, my best man, Jim, 35 male, noticed a receipt from a jewelry store slipped out of Todd's pocket. Jim told me everything, and I told Todd that he was no longer going to be a groomsman because I knew he was going to propose at my wedding. Todd cried to our parents, and which led to a blowout. In my parents' eyes, since Todd never admitted that he was going to propose to Lucy at my wedding, I was unfairly judging him. I refused, and I brought up Todd's past behavior. My parents couldn't refute this, and they got Todd to agree to not try anything at my wedding. This wasn't enough to convince me to let him be a groomsman, but I warned him that if he, as a guest, tried anything, that I'd make him regret it. Fast forward to the wedding, and surprise, surprise, Todd walked over to Lucy and proposed to her during Michelle's father-daughter dance, and did it in a way so that everyone would notice. Cue my revenge. Jim and I had hired a woman to pretend to be Todd's side piece, who cornered Todd and Lucy and claimed that she was pregnant with his baby. Todd denied this, but when she called his phone, I gave her his number and messed with Todd's phone to incriminate him. It didn't look good. Lucy threw the ring back at Todd and left in tears. When Todd saw the smile on my face, he knew that it was me, and I didn't respond to a single call or text from him or my parents until after the honeymoon. Lucy has thrown all of Todd's stuff out and has been denying access to their kid. Todd is furious and is demanding that I clear his name. I sent him a text saying that I had no idea what he was talking about, as well as a screenshot of a bill for the wedding, and gave a vague message demanding reimbursement for half of the wedding costs. Michelle knew the whole time what I was planning and gave me the green light after Todd ruined her moment with her dad, so I felt pretty good, but now even Abby thinks that I went too far. Oh my god, that's diabolical. So Lucy is Todd's partner, and Lucy announced her own pregnancy at the baby shower that their mum held for Abby. This comment, let's not feel too bad for Lucy in this either. She announced her pregnancy at her sister-in-law's baby shower. Obviously she's okay with stealing the spotlight onto herself too. They're a couple made in a manure pile. I feel sorry for the kid in the sense of his dad messing around and finding out, and I hope it comes better for him. But Todd and Lucy can go and get stuffed. Yeah, and like the top comment says, during the father-daughter dance? That's insane. I love what you did. Maybe time to go no contact instead of low contact. You have your new family now. And also, apparently Todd never ever apologized. Yeah, that's unbelievable. In so many different ways. Number 4 is called Entitled Parker parked in my driveway, so I blocked them in and got drunk all weekend. Friday night, I came home from work to find someone on our block was having a large party, and someone decided they were were entitled to park in my driveway. Keep in mind that my driveway is a single car wide, lined with a retaining wall on both sides and a garage at the end. Essentially impossible for a tow truck to come and pull them out without property damage. Seeing this and the lack of street parking, I took this as a cue to park right behind them in my driveway. Now a few hours go by and their entitled parker is now knocking at my door, demanding that I move my car so she can leave. Seeing as they were demanding, I informed them that I'd been drinking and I wouldn't move my car. The entitled parker then decides to call the police to get them to force me to move. When the police knocked on my door, I was sure to grab a beer from the fridge before I answered to talk to the officer. I'd informed him that after I got home I was unwinding and I'd been drinking and I was in no shape to drive. At this point their hands were tied because they couldn't tow her car out. I'm in no shape to drive and I'm legally parked in my driveway. I ended up telling the entitled parker that since it was a long weekend, I would be on a weekend long bender and they could come and move their car after I go to work on Tuesday. That's so deserved as well. Yeah, like the top comment says, the absolute bloody entitled audacity to park in someone else's driveway without permission. I would have took an Uber to work on Tuesday just as an extra FU. Yeah, and the fact that they're going to their door upset and super angry as well is so frustrating. Like what, you think you did the right thing here? Oh yeah, I can park in your driveway and not even ask? No, okay, you're in the wrong. It's so frustrating when people don't realize that they're doing something wrong, especially when they try and blame the other person as if they're in the wrong. Yeah, I think you handled this right. The next one is called I exposed an affair because it was affecting my sleep. So I'll start with understanding what I did wasn't exactly right, but I regret nothing. My upstairs neighbor has been having an affair with a married man for about 4 months now. I wouldn't care, but because it's an affair, he comes over at odd hours of the night and they do the horizontal mumbo very loud. I can hear a lot and it wakes me up and prevents me from sleeping. How do I know it's an affair? He's never spent the night and his car has baby car seats. Some backstory, I've had issues with my upstairs neighbor prior to this. She would throw parties on a Monday night. She gets home at 2 a.m. from work, pacing her condo and having loud phone conversations. She's 40 years old, throwing parties with 20-year-olds and having affairs and living like a teenager. I tried to talk to her like a normal person about my concerns, but she doesn't care and I've had to get the association involved to stop the parties. I hate her, so I decided to learn some more about this mystery man. I looked up the license plate, I found the address, I searched the address and I found the name. I took the name and I did some social media stalking and I found the man and his wife's profiles. I made a throwaway account and I messaged the wife about the affair. I haven't seen him now for a few weeks and I'm sleeping really nicely. Well, I love this subreddit. And that's what they get as well. That's 100% deserved. Yeah, like this comment says, never mess with a resourceful person's sleep and don't be a piece of scum who cheats. Yeah, damn right. Story number 6 is called Roommate Stole From Me, so her wallet vanished. Back in college, I had better credit than my 3 other roommates, so I put our internet and TV under my name, otherwise the deposit would have been like $600. The cable company offered me a $300 Visa gift card upon sign up. 2 months later, I called them because the gift card never arrived. They tell me they sent it a few weeks ago, and eventually I'm able to find out from Visa that someone used it at the Whataburger, Target, and liquor store that are near my house. I'm pissed off because obviously one of my roommates has used it, but I didn't know which one. A few weeks later, roommate number 2 complains that their $200 birthday gift card to Target has gone missing. His mum still had the receipt, and the store was able to tell her that someone used it at the Target near our house. He's obviously pissed off too, but now we've realised it's probably one of the other 2 roommates. A couple of weeks after that, roommate number 3's wallet disappears. We turn the house upside down looking for it, and we knew that it had to be in the house because her car key is attached to the wallet and her car is parked at the house. She's absolutely frantic, sobbing and screaming, hyperventilating, etc., throwing crap everywhere and just having an absolute meltdown while tearing the house apart. We'd never seen her behave like this, so we're all kind of surprised that she'd be that upset about her wallet. It's stressful, sure, but I genuinely was concerned about how she was reacting. She says the gift card thief must have taken it, implying it's roommate number 4, the only person who hasn't had something stolen yet. A few days after that, I found her wallet in the trunk of my car. We'd gone to get groceries together and I guess she just laid it in the trunk while we were unloading. I'm like, oh my god, I found her wallet, and then I open it up because I'm just excited to confirm that I did indeed find her wallet, and bam, both stolen gift cards are front and center. No doubt. The Visa gift card has my name printed on it, and roommate number 2's mum had written something in Sharpie on his gift card. I realised that she had a meltdown because she was afraid that we'd find out that she was the thief. I left the wallet, cash and all, right there where it was, pushed up against the inner lip of the trunk so you couldn't even see it unless you leaned further into the car. A locksmith wouldn't make her new keys without the title, and the title was in the glove box of her locked car. All in all, she spent about $500 replacing her driver's license, title and keys, not to mention not being able to drive her car for 2 weeks. I moved out of state with her wallet still in my car. I finally tossed it in the trash several months later. Sometimes the universe assists you with petty revenge. Edit. Holy cow, I did not expect this to take off. Sorry, if you see this, Chelsea, it was me. This happened 10 plus years ago, and I'm happy to report that we've all gone to therapy and are thankfully no longer terrible human beings. A couple of things to address. One, why didn't you confront her? I hated confrontation. I was a huge people pleaser and I wanted everyone to like me, and I enjoyed watching her suffer. Again, therapy. Thankfully, I'm no longer like this. 2, Visa gift cards don't have names. Google Comcast Visa promo card. The Target gift card itself said happy birthday, and my friend's mum wrote to my favorite son underneath. It was still semi-legible when I found her wallet. A locksmith doesn't make car keys. Well, apparently some do. In the end, she had her car towed to the dealership. I do remember she called a locksmith the first day her wallet was missing because she initially thought the wallet was in her car. She was so mad that the locksmith charged her for the weekend visit without actually unlocking her car. Was he taking advantage of a stupid college girl? Maybe. This was over a decade ago. I was 21 and I'm sure that my vodka-addled brain did not fully absorb the details of her whole ordeal. Turn her into the cops? Bro, have you met college students? Do you know how much illegal crap they do? It briefly crossed my mind, but petty revenge was far more satisfying. She had an absolute meltdown and missed a few days of work and a newish job dealing with this. Wow, that was so satisfying. Where has this subreddit been my entire life? This is bloody amazing. I love when we start making episodes on a new subreddit and it's like, oh, this is why this is popular, because it's bloody awesome. Why haven't I been reading this a lot sooner? I almost thought for a second there that you were going to say that you were the thief. The mystery in this post was so fun. Story number 7 is called My Guidance Counselor Told Me That I Wasn't University Material, and years later I pretended not to know her. I know it doesn't sound much like revenge, but it was oh so sweet, let me tell you. Back in high school, I struggled hard. I had a stepdad who adopted me and then ignored me my whole life, and a mum who was wrapped up in making his life perfect. Yeah, he was what some might call a textbook narcissist, with my mum as his flying monkey, a Wizard of Oz reference. Anyway, school was a difficult time for me, and I had a lot of anxiety and a hard time focusing. I attended all my classes and I was always doing very well on my assignments, but I had trouble completing them. My guidance counselor was the same all through high school, and every year would start with a meeting with her, and I'd explain that I needed more help because I was struggling to focus. She brushed me off every time, stating that I obviously wasn't trying hard enough because I had no excuse, since my stepdad, adopted dad, was, wait for it, a social worker for the school board and a personal friend of hers. Yeah, it was awful. At the end of high school, we had an obligatory meeting about what colleges and universities or trade schools to apply to. I told her I was interested in psychology and I'd like to be a counselor or to teach psychology. This woman scoffed, literally scoffed at me. She said, and I quote, "Please don't apply to university. It would be a huge disappointment for you. You're not university material, and you may be better with a community college or even certificate in administration." Now let me say, there's nothing wrong with going to community college or getting a certificate in something. Nothing at all. But this woman's words would haunt me my whole life. I wanted to pursue something I was interested in, and she essentially told me I wasn't smart enough or capable enough to do it. Fast forward to my late 20s, I worked at a variety of small jobs here and there, and became very depressed. I finally decided one day that screw it, I'm applying for university. Well, I got in and I graduated with honours, so I went to Teachers College for another bachelor degree, again graduated with honours, and about 5 years ago I finally finished my masters in behavioural psychology. 2 years ago stepdad died, and who's at the visitation? My old guidance counsellor. She came right over and started talking to me immediately like she knew me, like we were old friends. I cut her off and I said, "I'm so sorry, you must be confusing me with someone else." She looked absolutely shocked and said, "I was your guidance counsellor for 4 years," and I just shook my head and gave the best blank look I could give, shrugged and said, "Sorry, I honestly don't remember you." When I left, she looked a bit confused and disappointed. I think she had hoped for me to have all of these good memories of her, how helpful she was to me as a teenager, but no, I wanted her to feel that she was nothing to me, had zero effect. Even though she did affect me, I wasn't letting her know that. I felt pretty good about that. Edit, to anyone wondering, I now teach psychology to future counselors, so I'm doing what I originally wanted, and that made this so much sweeter. Oh, that's so awesome. Congratulations. Edit number 2, my mum had run into her a few times at the grocery store before this, and has bragged about my accomplishments, so I didn't have to tell her about them. She knew that I was successful. Since she already knew, I pretended she was nobody to me, to ensure that she understood she contributed nothing. Also, those who say that she helped me in the end and she was right, no, I asked her to help me for 4 years and I got nothing. She laughed at my dreams and my goals. She did not do her job and she failed as a guidance counsellor, and frankly also as a decent human being. Third edit, wow, thank you all for for the encouraging words. You guys are awesome. It sounds like this touched a nerve for a lot of people. It makes me sad how many people were treated like this too. I'd love to expand on my story more, but I wouldn't know where to do that. I'm glad this post was able to inspire some people to achieve their dreams in spite of the adults who said they couldn't. And to the haters who still want to argue, but she helped you. Yeah, no, I'm motivated and I helped myself. How dare you try to diminish my hard work by saying that this woman who failed me was helping? Shame on you for saying that. Bullies aren't motivational tools, they're just tools. Yeah, and good on you too. I'm sure stuff like this is so common and that's so sad. And yeah, they were a guidance counselor. They should have guided you towards something that you were interested in, not been like, oh nah, you can't do this, and bloody laughing at the stuff that you said. That's so sad. In terms of people's opinions on you and stuff, there's a saying that goes, everyone deserves to be heard, but not everyone deserves to be listened to. And in this situation, I feel like that definitely applies. Like, yeah, okay, that's your opinion, guidance counselor. Doesn't mean I should listen to you. What an awful way to treat a young person too. Yeah, that's so wild. But yeah, good on you for doing this. The next one says, I caught my partner cheating, so I covered his whole house in glitter. That's literally it. I caught him cheating by looking through his trash, literally lol, trash emails, and I found some pretty graphic emails from the other woman. Confirmed that he was with her that day through his Google Maps tracking. So I got every bit of loose glitter I owned and I went to his house and I scattered it. In his couch, in his chairs, his toilets, his clothes, his iron flat top stove. I know that I'll be okay and I'm gonna heal. But guess who probably won't ever be able to fully get rid of all the glitter? To be fair, they deserve way worse than this. But yeah, that's a bloody genius idea. Like, yeah, you're right. The glitter will be there forever and a constant reminder, and a lifetime full of glitter is definitely deserved. The next one says, I planted bamboo that overrun my neighbor's property over a security light. About 4 years ago, I used to live in a nice homeowners association in a small town in Texas and enjoyed having only one neighbor over my backyard fence. The plot was about 2 acres and the other side of the backyard butted up to a hayfield. The stars were beautiful at night because of virtually no light pollution, until the neighbor decided to install an incredibly bright security light over the back porch, aimed right at my back patio and bedroom windows. I tried to ignore it at first and I put shades in the bedroom, but out on the patio it was like having a bright LED headlight in your face all night. I consulted the homeowners association about adding a privacy addition to my fence to increase its height, and they said no because it was already at the 8-foot max allowed height. They said there was nothing in the bylaws or whatever about bright light, so nothing they could do. Wait, sorry, but don't security cameras have like a night mode? Why do they need there to be a light going all the time? Diplomacy. So I hated for this to be the thing where we finally had a formal greeting after 3 years of back porch waves, but I walked over and I rang the doorbell with $20. I politely explained how the light was causing the aforementioned nuisance and asked if there was any way I could convince him to point the light down or in a different direction, and even offered to buy him a case of beer, the $20, out of goodwill, and even a new motion sensing light. He seemed nice and agreed to point it down, but after waiting a month, nothing changed. I went back to have another polite conversation and he said he'd changed his mind and was going to leave it on every night and leave it pointed as is. Petty revenge. Needless to say, I was a bit upset diplomacy failed and I started figuring out how to win. If the military taught me anything, there's always ways to adapt and overcome. So I started researching fast-growing plants to create big privacy walls and reading through the HOA bylaws and the city and state ordinances about what I could or couldn't plant and if there were any repercussions for encroachment across the property line. I discovered running bamboo, despite being very invasive, would grow super fast to make the neighbor's house and light disappear from view, and there was nothing that the homeowners association or state or city books to prevent me from planting it or cause legal recourse if it did spread and grow on his side of the fence. The only thing he could do is cut anything that grew on his side of the line. So I pulled the trigger and I planted a bunch of golden bamboo, which grows and spreads crazy fast and grows up to 20 feet tall. I didn't care if it took over the fence line because his house is like 15 feet from the fence while mine was 50 yards away. So I planted a bunch right against the fence and only put root barrier on my side to prevent it spreading into my yard. Within 6 months, his house and lot were gone from view, replaced by a pretty bamboo jungle row at the edge of my yard. Within a year, he complained it was growing into his yard via mailed letters. They went right into the trash with no response. He rang my doorbell once and I looked at him through the window but just didn't answer the door. I unexpectedly sold the house and I moved 2 years after planting for a career opportunity. It's been 2 years since I sold and I just checked the property on Google Earth and his entire backyard is bamboo. Edit, wow, this post took off overnight. Kinda like bamboo. Thank you for the hilarious responses. Wow, that's so genius. That would be such a pain to deal with. And yet didn't need to happen in the first place because the other person shouldn't have acted like this. Like, why would they not point the light a different direction expression. It doesn't even make sense. They were being difficult for no reason. Yeah, good on you. That's so funny. Okay, the last one for today is called Little Sister Called Me a Parasitic Leech. Enjoy the Amish lifestyle. I'm 28 years old and I live in a town with a cost of living crisis. I moved back in with my parents since we have a good relationship. I buy all the groceries and I paid the electric bill. My little sister, 16, however, was not happy. She was saying that I should be a man and move out again. A few weeks ago, she started continuously calling me a freeloader and a parasitic leech. My parents are anti-tech. They're not part of a cult. They just avoid technology and they prefer to live a simplistic life. The only modern tech they use is a laundry machine, a car, a flip phone, and a TV. They don't, however, take away our gadgets if we paid for them ourselves. When I turned 18, I was looking for my first job. I had to handwrite a resume since I didn't have a computer or a printer. It's impossible to get a job while still in school because of the poor job market in our town. Now, my little sister was lucky. I bought her a smartphone with data plans since she was a young child, yet she was continuously calling me these names. Eventually, my little sister's constant name calling got on my nerves and I came up with an idea. As the smartphone is under an active installment plan, I simply repossessed the smartphone. Now she's having the same childhood that I had. Oh, and she stopped with the name calling. Enjoy the Amish lifestyle, little sister. Wow, this has been such a good episode. We have to make a new episode on here super soon. Your friends won't stop parking in my driveway. Congratulations, your parents now know that you vape at 16. My neighbours have a teenage son whose friends keep parking in my driveway. I went to check my mail last week and I saw them all out the front and I decided to nicely bring it up, which was met with eye rolls and fake okays. Monday comes around and I come home to find 3 of his friends' cars taking all the space I have to park. It was a 14-hour day for me, so I wasn't having it, and I made my second approach with intention to make myself very clear and said that I'd make it the neighbour's son's problem. Tonight I get home and it's happened again. I went next door and an adult finally answered. I brought up the cars at my place and I added a side note that their kid never expected. He's also been throwing his disposable vapes in my yard and I have the other neighbour as a witness, so I casually asked them to make sure that stops, and the instant change in expression told me everything I needed to know. Shortly after his friends left, and I can assume they probably won't be back for a while. Happy spring break, kid. Oh, and fair enough as well. That's so bloody frustrating. Coming home and this person and all their friends are all parked in your driveway, and it happens on multiple occasions as well. Yeah, like the top comment says, great job. You probably put things in perspective for his parents. He needs to learn how to respect others. Maybe he does usually, but to be disrespectful and have his friends be just as disrespectful would probably lead to arrest. Plus he's littering and thought you wouldn't find out or turn him in. Hopefully he learns a valuable lesson about respect. Yeah, bloody hope so. Like, oh, wait a second, that was really rude of me and I shouldn't have done that. I hope a lot of people that we read about realize that. Story number 2, refuse to give the gift you promised my daughter. Fine, I'll take away the gift I got for you. This year I got a new job that has been paying me very well. Therefore, for this Christmas I decided to splurge on everyone. In particular, I spent a lot of money on my 9-year-old daughter and she deserves it 100%. She's been pushing herself in school, helping around the house without being asked to, and always being the kindest soul that you'll ever meet. However, when my mother-in-law came early in the morning and saw how the gifts under our tree were much more than usual, she asked why. I told her I bought everyone a bunch of gifts, including her. She then proceeded to ask how much gifts I got my daughter, and I told her about 3 big ones and 3 mini ones. Apparently this outraged her because she started saying that a 9-year-old did not deserve that many gifts and that she would be taking away the gift that she bought my daughter so that my daughter wouldn't be too spoiled. I told her that was unfair, especially since my mother-in-law promised my daughter a doll for Christmas and my daughter was looking forward to it. My mother-in-law said let it be a lesson to my daughter that in life she can't get all things that she asked for. Look, I understand that, but it's not like I shower my daughter in gifts every day, and if anything, Christmas is the day that you're supposed to spoil your children. But my wife told me to let it go, and it was her mother's gift and therefore she could do anything she wanted with it, and her mother agreed, saying it was her right. And if we're going to play with that ideology, then so be it. I decided to remove the $600 designer bag that I got my mother-in-law, the thing I knew she wanted the most, and I gave her a $40 robe instead. Once my mother-in-law opened her present, she was disappointed, asking if that was all from me, because everyone else got increasingly more expensive gifts from me. And I said yeah, and I apologized if I disappointed her, but we can't always get the gifts that we hoped for. This left both her and my wife extremely furious, but hey, the mother-in-law got enough gifts, so I wouldn't want to spoil her. Yeah, you did the right thing. Imagine getting upset about this. Like, not only is them saying that about your daughter super rude, but also it kind of sounds like they half expected that $600 designer bag, and they were like, oh, is that all you got for me? And they think their daughter's the one that needs to learn a lesson. Nah, grandma. Yeah, and like this comment says. This left both her and my wife extremely furious. Well, wife caring more about mother than daughter. Once my mother-in-law opened her present, she was disappointed, asking if that was all from me. Also, holy hell, what sort of crazy entitlement is this? Yeah, I thought them asking if that was all they were getting from them was definitely a bit much too. Story number 3 is called She Expected an Inheritance from My Late Husband. My husband passed away 2 years ago. He was a remodeler who had a broad list of clients for a time to help out the adult daughter, let's call her Kiki, of my good friend of 42 years, Ami. He would hire her as a helper on some of his larger remodeling projects. During that time, Kay would occasionally borrow things for her own projects: a portable CD player, a pair of channel locks, a winch, a table saw, a chainsaw, a Graco cart paint sprayer, an air compressor, and a nail gun. They were all borrowed clean, in working order, in good condition with all relevant parts included. Every single one of them was returned with great delays, all broken and missing significant parts and a crap ton of excuses. Over 2 years, Kiki managed to cost him nearly $5,000 in losses. Finally, he also quit hiring her as a helper because he caught her stealing from one of his clients and forced her to put the item she took right back, and then kicked her off the job immediately. Last September, I was visiting Ami and Kiki was there, and then Kiki hit me up for what she called her promised inheritance, which was the first I'd ever heard about it. Given that my husband and I spent the 8 years of his terminal illness talking about what he wanted after he died, given that he gifted things of his that he wanted friends to have before he died, I knew damn well that he didn't intend for Kiki to have anything. My husband left no will. Ami knew that my husband had quit lending her tools after getting the cart paint sprayer back. It was a $1,200 purchase and was less than 4 months old when it was borrowed and returned broken, in ways the warranty would not cover. Ami also knew that Kiki's attempted theft had caused him to refuse to have her work on anything with him, for any reason. Ami was also a victim of her daughter stealing from her as well. Now, our state is a community property state. When a spouse dies without a will, only the surviving spouse inherits, so Ami told her daughter to back off, and I got the bright idea of how I was going to handle getting rid of all that broken stuff, which was still taking up room in the tool shed. So I told her I'd be sure to pick something out for her, even though her own behaviour was the root cause of the bad blood between herself and my husband. So the next day, with Ami's help, I dropped off all the broken tools and busted up CD players that Kiki borrowed from my husband at her apartment. Kiki wanted to know what I expected her to do with all of it. I told her that I expected her to do with them whatever it was that she had expected my husband to do with them after she returned them in the condition that they were in. Now she's the proud owner of a bunch of useless tools, and I got to reclaim nearly 35 square feet of space in what is now my tool shed. Wow, that's amazing. I love how they handled this. Like, hey, you feel like you're entitled to something? Remember all that stuff of theirs that you broke? Well, yeah, you're entitled to that. Story number 4 is called I Got a Little Girl in Trouble on Purpose. I have a 1-year-old son, and we decided to go to the playground one day. On this day, a bunch of kids were there, among whom was a bratty 4-year-old girl who had a real mean streak to her. My son, who didn't know better, went close to her, and she just tells him, "What are you doing here? You're not invited here." I agree, I kinda didn't like my son being bullied, but I figured that he doesn't understand these things yet, and I didn't want to be one of those sensitive helicopter parents who shield their kids from everything, so I just took my son and we played elsewhere. Later on, I said that her grandma was there, and it's not like she was one of those loosey-goosey grandmas, so while the girl was close to her grandma, it dawned on me that I could bait her to be mean to my kid in front of Granny, so I placed my son close to her since I figured out that he wouldn't understand anyway, and it worked. She said, "You're not welcome here, go away," and her grandma heard and she got in trouble, and the grandma said they'll now go home since you can't be nice. She fought it but couldn't really do anything about it. Part of it was that I think Granny just wanted to go home, lol. Editor add, I'm sorry for the lack of clear communication on my part, but for those who say that my 1-year-old needs to learn boundaries, yeah, I do agree, and I do try to teach him. For example, he'll want to just grab other kids' toys like toy cars or balls when other kids fling them around, but I never let him touch it, and I communicate with him why it's important to not touch other people's things without their consent. For the girls asserting her boundaries part, as much as I am for boundaries, she was gathered in the middle of the top of the playground structure where kids access the slides and fiddle with marbles on the walls, so I don't really think she or her group should be asserting their boundaries or personal space when they're in a shared space and a supposed throughway for other kids, and she was also doing it to other kids, not just mine. Yeah, like the top comment says, you did her a semi-favor. You gave her the opportunity to display some behavior that an adult in her life should be correcting, and fortunately Grandma was up to the task. Yeah, 100%, huge shout out to Grandma. Story number 5 is called Roommates Stopped Contributing, so we left them with nothing. This happened during my junior year of college. I, Claire, lived with 5 other women. I'll call them Abby, Brooke, Danny, Ella, and Fran. When we signed the lease on the house, we agreed to a 1-year deal, June 1st to May 31st. The house was off campus and unfurnished, so we needed things to make it feel like home. Prior to moving in, we all sat down and decided what we needed for the house and who was going to bring what, and also settled on a chore store schedule. We also decided that we'd have a household supply fund set up so we could buy things that we'd all use, like toilet paper and paper towels, dish detergent and laundry detergent. As it turns out, Danny, Ella, Fran and I bought most of the stuff that we needed, like a couch and a small dining table, dishes, silverware, drinking glasses, cookware, food storage containers, etc. Things went pretty well during my fall semester. Shortly after that, however, things started to decline. Abby's boyfriend Andy basically moved in with us, and the two of them started acting like they owned the place. Left a dirty dish in the sink, they'd leave a passive-aggressive note about how rude it was to do that, come home after the library closed at midnight. Abby and Andy went to bed at 10, and if you woke them up, there was hell to pay. Pretty soon, Brooke and her boyfriend Brad were acting in much the same way. By early February, it was clear to Danny, Ella, Fran and me that we did not want to live with Abby and Brooke another year. The four of us found a different off-campus place and we signed a lease. We let Abby and Brooke know, and from then on, the two of them plus their boyfriends went from partial jerks to complete jerks. They'd do things like stop the clothes washer mid-wash, take our clothes out, dump them on the floor, and then start their own laundry. Okay, so what you're saying is they suck? That's so rude. They'd use all the hot water by taking super long showers. They'd write return to sender on our mail. Oh my god. They destroyed flowers our boyfriend sent or brought to us. They refused packages. They stopped contributing to the shared supply fund, and they stopped doing chores. Well, how awful can you be? About a week before Memorial Day, Ella got a call from the landlord on her new place saying that the previous tenants had moved out and we could move in early if we'd like at no charge. Danny, Ella, Fran and I discussed it, and we decided to get out of our current house ASAP, but we didn't tell Abby and Brooke of our plans. Memorial Day weekend rolls around and Abby, Brooke and the boyfriends head out of town to go camping, while the rest of us put our plan to action. With the help of friends Danny, Ella, Fran and I got all of our stuff moved out, all living room furniture, dining room furniture, dishes, silverware, cookware, food storage containers, baking supplies, shower curtain, rugs, lamps, vacuum, broom, dustpan, etc. We also decided that since neither Abby nor Brooke had contributed to the shared household supply fund since March, the toilet paper, paper towels, dish detergent, laundry detergent and so forth was ours, so we took all of that too. Abby, Brooke and their boyfriends were shocked to return from their camping trip to an empty house. What made our petty revenge even sweeter was that on their way home from camping, all four of them got food poisoning and were really sick. The scathing text that we got about moving out unannounced and taking all the shared household goods, especially the toilet paper, priceless. Danny, Ella, Fran and I are great friends still, and we still get a good laugh about the situation about 12 years later. None of us have heard from Abby or Brooke since graduation. Wow, that's unbelievable. Hell yeah, that was so satisfying. Like, that's what you get for being awful. Some people are so frustrating. Like, oh, I'm gonna make your life even harder and be super awful. Oh, what's that? The consequences of my actions? You did the right thing. You can't live with somebody that's even a little bit toxic, let alone people doing stuff like this. Yeah, that was incredible. Story number 6 is called Scumbag Neighbor Broke Into My Vehicle and Stole My Stuff, so I returned the favor. I rented a duplex in my early 20s. My neighbor was a wannabe gangster type and made the mistake of breaking into my vehicle one night. I had a small SUV with a removable soft top, so my neighbor figured it would be easy pickings to just peel back the top and help himself to my stereo, amplifier, CDs and some other stuff. I discovered the break-in early in the morning after it occurred. I knew for certain who the culprit was. We weren't in a heavily populated area and my neighbor was well known for thievery. I waited around for him to leave his place, and when the opportunity arose, I went around the back of the house and I looked through the bedroom window to find out that sure enough my stuff was sitting right on the floor in there. I instinctively tried the window and as luck would have it, the sash went right up. Bingo, I hopped in and I surveyed the items laying around. It occurred to me that I could get some excellent revenge here if I played it right. So rather than just recoup my stuff and wind up in a fight over it, I borrowed a marker and I proceeded to write my name on all the stuff and also a few choice items of his just for good measure. I then climbed back out the window and I waited. When he finally came back, I called for some police presence and explained to them how my vehicle got robbed, and I knew it was the neighbor due to seeing through the window. We knock on the door and I can still remember the look on his face seeing me and the cop standing there. He wasn't even close to ready for the encounter and almost certainly had drugs on him, so he was very cooperative given the circumstances. I politely explained that I know he broke into my vehicle and I needed him to return my stuff immediately or I'll have to press charges. He retrieved my things and I pointed out my name written on them to the officer. I asked about my other stuff while he looked back puzzled and dumbfounded. I rattled off the other couple of choice items of his that I also put my name on earlier. The look in his face while he handed over his stuff to me while the cop was standing there was priceless. That's such a smart idea. These stories have been so good today. And yeah, I get the feeling he's not going to be stealing your stuff anymore. The next one says, take my parking spot. What goes around comes around. This may be the pettiest thing I've ever done. So in my city, there's a pub that's attached to a donut shop that serves the best donuts in the city, which always causes a long line. And because it is attached to a pub, it doesn't shut until 9 p.m, as there's a solid flow of business rolling in. Anyway, my girlfriend and I get a serious hankering for some snacks, so we decide to head to the donut shop, and we arrive at about 8:30 p.m. by car. Now, there are only 3 parallel parking spots a little up the street from the place, and they're all 15-minute spots, which are usually full. We see up the street that, count our lucky stars, a spot is free. My girlfriend pulls a little ahead of the car in front of the spot, turns on her indicator, and begins backing into the parking spot when this little white Vespa driving behind us whips into the spot. I roll down our window and I call out to the driver, "Excuse me, we were just backing in." The driver seems to be a student who shrugs her shoulders and calls out to me, "Sorry, first come, first serve." While her and her friend share a good laugh, my girlfriend suggests that we just get donuts another time, and I tell her she can drop me off here. I'll buy the donut since I know what she likes and she can loop around. She agrees, and I pop out of the car past the little white Vespa where the girls are still gathering their things, and I head to the shop. As always, the line is super long for donuts, and since this is the last batch, the donuts are slim pickings, talking about which ones are best and which they haven't had yet. I hear one of them jokingly mention, "Thank God we got a parking spot," and they burst out laughing. I get to the front of the line, and when they ask me for my order, request 2 dozen donuts, which is every last one remaining. The girls behind me didn't listen to what I ordered, but eyebrows of confusion started to form on their faces, and they slowly saw each donut loaded into the boxes and their options dwindle. One of them, the driver, in desperation asked the baker who was loading them in, "What, you're not going to save a few for us though?" To which I turned around and said, "Sorry, first come, first serve." She honestly looked like she just simultaneously solved a movie mystery and pooped her pants. It's difficult to put into words, but truly an expression I can never forget. Best donuts I ever tasted, and enjoyed by the rest of my office the next morning. Okay, that's my favourite one by far. That's so unbelievably deserved, and they should have saw that coming, to be fair. The person that you were just super rude to is in front of you now, and now you can't get any donuts. These are so fun. I love reading these. And also the fact that they were laughing about it as well makes it even more satisfying. Like, oh, you're gonna be super rude to somebody and then laugh about it with your friends? And not just laugh about it to your friends, but laugh about it at the other person? Yeah, you don't deserve any donuts, okay? The bloody audacity. Story number 7 is called "My New Downstairs Neighbor Made the Manager Harass Me." I hope he likes being woken up at 2 a.m. every morning. I've lived in the same apartment with my boyfriend for almost 4 years. It's not the best apartment, but I love the location. I've never really had any problems here. I'm a quiet neighbor that stays to myself. My new downstairs neighbor has made several stupid complaints, like complaints about me running my garbage disposal, but the most recent one was ridiculous. He went and told management that there's been issues with my balcony. I got a call last week asking if I've been throwing anything over my balcony. I told the manager absolutely not. There's plants down below, so I had dumped a water bottle off into the plants before, but that's not harming anyone. Because of this call, I went out to my balcony to investigate. I noticed that my flower vase had fallen over and some water may have spilled down. Not too big of a deal. There wasn't too much water in the vase when the wind knocked it over. I think this is the end of that silly complaint, but I was wrong. The weekend passes and I get a nasty notice on my door. The notice said pet violation for not picking up after my dog and a $50 fine, and stating that I'm at risk of getting my lease terminated because of my violations. The only problem is I don't have a dog. I emailed the property manager and I said I do not have a dog, therefore I'm not paying this fine. She sends back a ridiculous email stating that she's received several complaints. I only have one downstairs neighbor about urine coming from my balcony, so she assumed I was letting my dog that I don't have pee on my balcony. Then she says since I don't have a dog, that means me or my boyfriend are peeing on our balcony and that I'm still in violation of my lease. This was comical at this point. My boyfriend and I have never done this. We've never had any complaints in our 4 years here. It just so happens as soon as I get a new downstairs neighbor, the complaints came rolling in. Yeah, they're not being very discreet about it. Here's where the petty revenge kicks in. I work night shift, so I don't get to bed until around 6 a.m. Every morning around 6 a.m, I hear my new neighbor leaving for work. My boyfriend and I decided to incorporate a new 2 a.m. workout when I get home from work, consisting of jumping jacks, running in place, and all sorts of fun stuff just for my lovely downstairs neighbor. I've informed the leasing office that I won't be renewing my lease in December due to this. The next 3 months for my new neighbor is going to be hell. I hope he enjoys it. Why are they making random complaints about stuff that you're not even doing? Like just to annoy you or something? Like so bitter and angry that they're making complaints about stuff that isn't even happening? I purposely farted in front of a guy at the gym because he wouldn't take no for an answer. So, a few things. I go to the gym to work out and decompress. I don't see it as a place to be social. I wear large over-ear headphones. I was at the gym and I'd finished one of my sets of deadlifts when a guy walks over. This is something I'm used to despite how much I dislike it. But he starts talking to me and I'm able to pick up that he's trying to flirt. I'm polite and I'm waiting for the proper moment to end the conversation. When he asks me for my number, I decline. He keeps talking and going into the usual shtick of why not and come on. At that point, I'm very uncomfortable and also annoyed because my workout timer has already gone off and it's past my time for me to start my next set. I put on my big girl pants and I tell him that he's making me uncomfortable and I just want to finish my workout. Does he leave? No, he keeps talking now, going on about how he didn't mean it like that and he's not a bad guy. No actual apology to be found. Wow, that's so bad. Now, during this entire interaction, I've had to fart. I was being polite and holding it in until he left, but seeing as he isn't, I think, well, I know a way to get him to leave. As he's still talking, I let it go. It's silent, but rather smelly. It only takes about 2 seconds for him to catch a whiff. He stops talking and the face he makes is too much that I have to bite my lip to stop laughing. That's when he gives me a look of, are you serious? And he finally leaves and I'm left alone to finish my workout. Oh my god, that is so frustrating. Not the fact that you farted, but the fact that you told them to go away pretty much and told them that you were uncomfortable and they don't leave. We read stuff like this on the Nice Guy subreddit all the time. And yeah, ripping a big fart right in front of them is definitely a good thing to do. Like if you're talking to somebody, like in this situation, and they're not interested and they definitely don't want to talk, the last thing you should do is stand there and try to bloody convince them. Give me one good reason why we shouldn't go on a date. Like walk away if they're not interested. Oh my god. At that point, you deserve to get farted on. The next one is called Police Were Called Because of Leaves. That's gonna cost you. This is recent and very petty, but great. My friend keeps a very clean yard. In the fall, he likes to get all the leaves before it rains and they become a biatch to pull up. His neighbor doesn't care about his yard as he's owned the house for a few years and still not moved in. He lives a few states away. As my friend was finishing up sucking up the leaves with his machine, some of them blew into the neighbor's driveway, maybe like 20 leaves total. My friend finished up and went inside. About 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door and a squad car outside. The officer said they received a complaint about leaves being blown in the driveway. The neighbor had been watching on his doorbell camera and decided this transgression warranted police intervention. Wow, how bored do you have to be to care about this? You could tell that the officer was visibly annoyed as my friend asked the officer to look at his yard and then his neighbor's. The pettiness. The neighbor had an old car shipped and dropped in the driveway about 8 months ago where it sat ever since. Remember, he still lives a few states away. While my friend told the officer he could clean the leaves, promptly he asked the officer if he could do him a favor, check the car for proper tags. The officer saw the car in question and gave a slight smile. While my friend cleaned the leaves out of the driveway, the officers were walking around the car looking at the VIN and running information. You could hear the neighbor on his doorbell asking what the problem was. There's a law that any car that's in the driveway must have tags and insurance on them. The police gave him a call and told him that his car was in violation and he either needed to put the car in the garage, which would need to be lifted and dropped into the garage, or get the registration, insurance and an e-check on the car that can't be driven, all taken care of within 2 weeks or they'll be back to tow the car and ticket him. Dude cost himself a 10-hour car ride to get his car lifted and stuffed in the garage, all over a few dead leaves. Yeah, and fair enough as well. Like, yeah, dude, maybe you don't have to make an issue out of nothing. Literally not a problem. But no, there's some leaves on my property. Better call the police. Absolute cringe behavior. I left a dirt stain on a man's white Nike shoes because he wouldn't move his feet on a flight. I was flying home from a group trip on AA. Now, on this flight, a man sat next to me. He wasn't super tall, about average in height. He needed to go to the bathroom, so I got up and I let him out, and then got up again to let him back in. As I sat down, my leg hits his. I looked down to see his leg about halfway into my aisle, leaving me with about 1/3 of the space I had. I'm thinking that he's gonna move, and he's got plenty of space because he doesn't have a bag under his seat, but he keeps it there. I'm sitting side saddle in my seat at this point. I look at him, and then at his leg, and then back at him. He blatantly stares at me, and then pulls out his phone and just starts playing on it. So what I do is I lift my foot, and I place it over his foot, setting the dirty sole of my Converses on what looks like some new Nike shoes. Fabric ones too, not leather. He immediately whips his head up at me, and I, following his example, pulled out my tablet and started reading. He pulls his foot away and had a nasty attitude the whole plane ride, but I got my space back. Yeah, and to be fair, this is the right thing to do. Wait a second, did they even ask them to move their foot? Okay, so if you didn't ask them to move their leg, maybe do that first, but definitely do this after. Say the person didn't realize what they were doing. It's a learning lesson for them because they're not going to do it anymore. I'm sure they were were doing it on purpose, but some people aren't aware of like the space they're taking up, or just don't think about it, or have never had to think about it. So yeah, hopefully this made them realize that they need to not do this. Sister-in-law insulted my kids, so I exposed her lies. Sister-in-law is the kind of mum that always has to one-up the other kids. She constantly talks about how her kids are smarter and taller and faster, etc. than all her friends' kids. She literally bragged about them peeing more than her friends' kids when they were babies. Okay, so we're off to a bad start. It was worse when my husband and I had our twins. Suddenly, everything was a competition. That her kids always won. One of my girls rolled over at 4 months. Her son had rolled over when he was just a week old. The twins both took their first steps around 13 months. Her daughter was running at 4 months. She didn't actually start walking until around 16 months. She even changed the weight of her kids' birth weight, which makes them both heavier than the current heaviest newborn in America. It's so weird that she feels the need to tell such obvious lies, especially to people who know she's lying because they were there when their kids were small. I got annoyed when she went from lying about her own kids to telling me there's something wrong with mine. The girls are a few months shy of 2, and they're both healthy, on track, and hitting their milestones. Sister-in-law has become obsessed with the idea that there's something wrong with them because they're not speaking in long sentences. Oh god, they sound awful. Of course they're not. They're not even 2. They're both developmentally on track, but she insists that her children were speaking in 5 to 6 word phrases by 18 months. Spoiler, they were not. Honestly, her son is almost 7 and I can still barely understand a word that the kid says. My husband and I ignored her, but she took it too far when I got a call from her friend who works in early intervention, who was under the impression that I was super concerned about my children. We talked and her friend confirmed that yes, they are on track and no, there's nothing to worry about. I finally lost my patience. Hey, her kids are breaking almost every record there is and that should be celebrated. We had dinner with my husband's family on Saturday. Kids were in another room and I decided it was the perfect time to give my gift, a booklet I'd printed and laminated called the White Claw Book of World Records. I printed all the supposed milestones of her kids, complete with photos and information of the actual world record holders now that they'd been pushed into second place. She flipped through the first couple of pages, went beet red and called me an a-hole. Her husband took it from her and got through the first page before laughing hysterically and asking her why the hell she was still lying. Apparently it wasn't the first time they'd talked about her lying about their kids. She stormed out but texted me later that night and asked why I'd humiliated her when all she'd ever tried to do was help me get my kids the help they needed. Oh, how dare you! But if that was how I wanted to treat her, then she'd stop. So I guess that's a win for me. What makes somebody feel like they need to do stuff like this? Like it's definitely some sort of insecurity, but yeah, it's not a positive. And them acting like OP's kids needed help. Get out of here. They were not trying to help. They were trying to show off and act like they were better than them in like the most unhealthy way possible. And yeah, it's good that you made them realize that what they're doing is bad. But yeah, I hope they get to the bottom of this because it doesn't sound healthy. Park illegally in a disabled space. Learn a very expensive lesson. I have a disabled parking placard. And a few weeks ago, I went to Target to buy things I didn't need. And forget the things I did. Not only were all the spaces taken, someone parked their gigantic Escalade on the line between 2 disabled spaces, taking up both. Wholly irritated because this happened so much. I walked around the car, no placard or disabled plate. Cue the fury of someone who has to deal with this stuff all the time. And cue the petty revenge. I took a picture and I went inside to find a manager. When I found one, I showed her the photo and she rolled her eyes inside. Apparently this happens a lot at their location because it's near a pretty affluent town with a lot of very wealthy, very entitled people, and most often it's the owners of the huge SUVs and the F-150s that park like jerks. She said she'd called the cops, so I decided to go back outside and hang out by the door to watch the show. The manager joined me and we chatted while we waited for the police. The cops arrived and they walked around the car, peering through the window and running the plate. One cop took out a little book and started writing in it. They took some photos and one came over and asked if they'd make an announcement in the store to get the driver outside. The manager radioed someone inside and asked them to announce the make and model and the plate of the car over the PA system. A few minutes later, she came charging out of the store, middle-aged, well-dressed woman, the common Karen of North America, and already yelling at the police. As soon as she got to her car, one of the cops held up his hand to shut her up and then started lecturing her. I was too far away to hear, but she stopped yelling at least. That cop spoke to her for a few minutes and then the other cop with the little book handed over 2 papers. She looked absolutely apoplectic. The cops came back over and spoke to the manager, telling her that they ordered her to move her car and if she didn't or caused any problems in the store, to call them back and they'd tow the car. They told us that they gave her 2 tickets for each space at $500 each. Ouch. The manager thanked the police and me and went back inside. The woman stomped around for a bit before getting in her car and peeling out. The cops looked at each other, then got in their cars and followed her. Pretty sure she continued to have the day that that she deserved. Meanwhile, I happily treated myself to some Lego for performing a public service. Wow, I love everything about this. Good on you for doing this, OP. And like, yeah, taking up 2 spaces, get fined for it. You'd hope that somebody like this would stop doing this, but I feel like they'd still do stuff like this. And also, buying yourself Lego is such a good thing to do after something like this. Like, you know what? I deserve a good time. Let's buy some Lego. The next one is called Coworker Tried to Claim My 15-page report as her own work to the CEO, got outed in front of him. This was a young woman who only got her job, especially made for her, because her dad was golfing buddies with our CEO. She regularly blamed her team for her numerous mistakes and took all the credit for their hard work. Let's call her Biatch. I used to do trade shows, and after the fall season, I'll be back in the office and I'll create a comprehensive report on the results of the shows, normally 15 plus pages. The Veeps always wanted paper reports, not attachments, so I normally printed them out and distributed them personally to the staff. I handed Biatch her copy as we passed in the corridor, then watched in sheer amazement as she marched into the CEO's office and said, "I kid you not, here boss, I just put this together for you." Stunning. The report was all about trade shows, and she wasn't even in the same department. Cue the revenge. I marched in there right after her and said, "Oh, Biatch, I just realized my report has some numerical errors. Let me have it back and I'll get you a revised one." All the while staring at the CEO with a slightly raised eyebrow. As I left, I heard the most wonderful words from the CEO. "Would you please shut the door as you leave?" Biatch came out about 5 minutes later looking like a ripe tomato. I couldn't resist asking, "How was your little tete-a-tete with our boss?" Are they trying to lose their job or something? That doesn't even make any sense. Why would they do that? Either they don't want their job anymore, or they've absolutely lost their mind. Like, oh yeah, here's this work that I definitely did and didn't just steal from somebody. What are you talking about? Oh yeah, this will be super easy to get away with. No, of course you're not going to get away with something like this. The next one is called Officer Didn't Give a Warning, so I told his kid that he couldn't ride. For the last few years, I've worked pre-season at an amusement park. I have the final call as a supervisor since I've got 6 years seniority. Even though I only work 8 days a year, 5 years ago, a police officer gave me a citation for driving 5 miles per hour over the limit. Even though I hadn't received a citation since 2001, 2 days ago, a ride operator called me because somebody was upset that his child wasn't tall enough to ride. Although I could have allowed his child to ride with adult supervision, I recognized the officer and I denied his request. Yeah, 5mm under, officer. I'm sure he understood after that as his child bowled. Am I the a-hole? Why, yes I am. Yeah, like the top comment says, am I correct in assuming that he was in civilian clothes? So when you referred to him as officer, he knew damn good and well that karma was raising its head? And OP said, yeah, you're indeed correct. Yeah, well, that is petty, but at the same time, I love it so much. The next one is called Entitled Lady Tries to Force Me to Leave a Public Lake. I force her to leave instead. This was a few years ago. I used to work as a detective for a local police department, retired now, and this occurred when I was still employed there. In my life, I've always made every attempt to stay on the right side of the law, as I consider hypocrisy one of the worst traits for an officer of the law to have. I owned a nice ski boat, and in my spare time, I enjoyed taking my family to the local public lake to use the boat and tube, or water ski and swim. My kids were ages 12 and 13 at the time, and they really got a kick out of this. They wanted to go nearly every day off I had all summer long. One day we were at the lake, and after a few hours, my daughter mentioned that she needed to use the bathroom. The lake also had a public swimming beach that had public restrooms, and we would often take bathroom breaks there. We would pull up to the shore well away from the marked swimming area and disembark to use the facilities. One day as we pulled up, I noticed a lady on a lounge chair sunbathing on the shore near where we pulled the boat up. I stayed about 50 feet from her, still about 250 feet away from the swimming area, as I slowly maneuvered the boat towards the shore at idle. As I got close, she stood up and glared at me, while my kids whispered to me that they knew her as a mean lunch lady from their previous elementary school. As I brought the boat up to the shore, this woman started yelling very loud that I was breaking the law. I smiled and as friendly as I could said, "Really? What law?" She continued yelling, saying that I was driving a motorboat in a swimming area. I pointed to the marked swimming area about 250 feet away and asked, "You mean that swimming area?" To which she replied, "Yes." I told her that I never entered or even got close to the swimming area, and that my boat was right now as close as I got. She said the law prohibits boats from pulling up to any shore. Lol, how do you get in or out of a boat? Swim? And now she was calling her son the deputy, who was gonna get me in trouble. At this point, I was starting to enjoy this a little, because I thought for sure that her son the deputy would tell his mum that she couldn't stop me from pulling my boat up to the shore. I stood nearby as she calls someone, assuming her son, on her cell phone. She then reads the person on the phone my boat hull number. It's like a license plate for boats. Then she says, with a smirk on her face, "My son Somebody's going to order you from the lake right now. And what happens next shocked me. The woman calls me by my full name, then she hands me the phone. Now, I should say this, what just happened is a very, very clear violation of the law. In my state, it's known as a LEIN violation, and police officers and deputies are very often charged with this crime. I read about it several times a year. If an officer uses his police computer to divulge personal information, say a deputy tells his mum the name of the registered owner of a boat that she's having a disagreement with, for example, it is a crime, no ifs, ands, or buts. Every cop knows this, so I take the phone and I immediately say, "Who is this?" I hear, "This is Deputy so-and-so of the so-and-so County Sheriff Office," and I immediately interrupt him and say, "Deputy, do you know what the LEIN violation is?" Several seconds of silence. I say, "Deputy so-and-so," using his real name of course, "are you still there?" He says yes, so I say again, "Deputy so-and-so, let me ask you again, do you know what an LEIN violation is?" He stammers out a reply about boat hull numbers and public records or something. I said, "No, that's not what an LEIN violation is. Since you don't know, do I need to remind your supervisor what an LEIN violation is?" Again, silence. I then said, "Tell you what, I'm gonna hand this phone back to your mother. Then you're gonna tell your mother to leave this beach right now. Then we can all forget this ever happened. Understood?" Long silence. Understood. He does a long exhale and says, "Yeah, okay." I hand the phone back to his mother. She whispers into the phone for a few seconds, then angrily snaps her phone shut. Without making eye contact, she packs up her stuff and is gone. I thought about reporting him anyway, but technically I was the victim, yet I wasn't really feeling victimized at all, so I let it go. Only one other time did I see the lady at the beach again, and as she saw me, she again immediately packed up her stuff and again left. Edit, not for the ACAB crowd, no point in reading below, your mind is already made up. When off duty, I'm a citizen, like it or not, and quite frankly, thank God for that. I've never cared one way or another for the thin blue line stuff, and while on duty, I witnessed, then later reported an officer, and another time a dispatcher breaking the law, for the dispatcher a misdemeanor LEIN violation actually, which I promptly reported both times to my superior. Both were fired, by the way. The officer is still doing federal time as I type this. As a detective, I prosecuted an officer one time for a felony that started with zero evidence against him, actually got the guy to confess. I was shocked, only because he should know his right to self-incrimination. He was charged and pled to a felony. I'm proud of that, if you should wonder. I'm sure I've probably had cases involving other officers, even if I'm not remembering it now. But all citizens have rights, even cop citizens. When off duty, I have a right to not report something that makes me a victim, if I so choose. But now you're a hypocrite. No, we can all choose or not. We all get rights, and I will happily prosecute anyone, law enforcement or otherwise. When I'm truly victimized, I get to make the call as to when I'm victimized, but demanding that I become a victim when I don't want to be. Now who's victimized? Yeah, like the top comment says, she's done this before many times. Yeah, guaranteed they do stuff like this all the time. And yeah, good on you, OP, that was so satisfying. And on that note, I feel like it's a good time to read something wholesome. I love this subreddit, so I'll be back to make a new episode super soon. But I also feel like we need something wholesome. I made Ferris a tiny blueberry pancake for National Dog Day, and he got real excited about it. Oh, little Ferris, that's so cute. Like, oh my god, is that for me? Are you joking? This is the best day ever. Stimpy and Olive not being camera shy. They look like a couple that defied all odds to be together. Oh yeah, they do. I think we've seen Stimpy and Olive in a different wholesome meme, but yeah, it's good to see them again. I've been hearing a frog singing from outside our wind chimes for like a month or so, but today I found out it's not just one frog, it's a whole secret society. Wow, that's unbelievable. Little froggies in the wind chime. So they were making noise and the wind chime was like amplifying it. That's so awesome. I wondered why my dog wouldn't come when I called him, and then I found this. Oh, sorry, I'm doing something very important at the moment. I'll be right with you. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time, and if you did and you want to see more of this subreddit, make sure you let me know down below, and make sure you like and subscribe. And the comment of the day today goes to B. McLevy. I was just on a trip to Ireland and Italy all last week, and you put out enough content to watch in between long train rides each day. Thank you for all your fun content, Vincey. Wow, that's so awesome. The second I read that, I knew it had to be the comment of the day. So you're out there on trains from being in Ireland and Italy, and you're watching Vincey episodes. That's so cool, and thank you for the support. And thank you all for the support, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And as always, make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!